Well, here we are on Palm Sunday. Trying to figure out where we are here. As we've done past weeks, I would request a volunteer to read our gospel to us. Starts on page 25 from Mark 11.
I already read it once today.
Okay, thank you. Sure, please do.
When they were approaching Jerusalem at Bethphage and Bethany, near the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples and said to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately as you enter, you will find tied there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' just say this, 'The Lord needs it and will send it back here immediately.'" They went away and found a colt tied near a door outside in the street. As they were untying it, some of the bystanders said to them, "What are you doing untying the colt?" They told them what Jesus had said, and they allowed them to take it. Then they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks on it, and he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, and others spread leafy branches that they had cut in the fields. Then those who went ahead and those who followed were shouting, "Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." Keep going. Then he entered Jerusalem and went into the temple. And when he had looked around at everything, it was already late, and he went out to Bethany with the 12.
Thank you. I'll move us back to page 25 to this introduction, where Padraig's talking about being in a particular geography. He says it can sometimes be difficult to see these villages and towns with their own stories. Scandals, markets, griefs, births, changes, festivals, delights, marriages, family feuds. Palm Sunday comes this year into a world that is busy with so much else. So many of us are coping with the awful complexities of COVID, and on top of that, many are dealing with the ongoing trauma of systemic oppression, racism, misogyny, ageism. What can come along the difficulties of our lives that might stop us, that might cause us to stop and look and say Hosanna, say blessed? In difficult lives, it can be difficult to know where to look for hope. As we enter into this Palm Sunday, we invite you to take a little time to consider what it is that holds your gaze in troubled times. And so I just wanted to start there with those questions of that last paragraph. What can cause us to stop and look and say blessed? Or what is it that holds our gaze in troubled times?
I will say, I do think these are very troubled times. It breaks my heart. When I look around, I look at all the conflicts in the world, I look at the conflicts between people that love each other tremendously, and it's heartbreaking. And then I got to go and spend time last week with my grandchild, who is the love of my life. And then I went down to help my mom so my sister could go out of town. And we've not always had a beautiful relationship, but it's improved over the past 20 years. And then that was a blessing. And in the midst of all the stuff that is kind of complicated, that was a blessing. So I'm going to hold on to that. I can't fix some things, but I can do that.
For me, it's being outside, just looking, whether it's the clouds, listening to the birds. So when I'm troubled, I seek nature and I seek God there. And that really helps kind of focus me or maybe even distract me. But either way, it helps.
Yeah, So in both your answer and Carney's answer, I hear this idea of awareness and kind of being attuned to what's happening around and these deep loves of our lives and connection with nature.
Some ways, for me, I have to remember that it's not just gonna happen. I mean, it has on occasion just happened, but mostly I have to be intentional about it. We were in Savannah the last couple of days, and I said, let's just go walk. And so we just came across this really big park, and there was an art show out there, and there were all these kids running around playing. It was just a beautiful place. And there was this guy sitting over saying, "Ask me about Jesus." So I did. And he and I had a great conversation.
That's cool.
But he immediately went to, what do you think about gay people? I said, well, I just love them like Jesus does. He said, well, what do you think's gonna happen when they die? I said, well, I reckon that'll be between them and Jesus. I said, I'm not a judge. He looked at me and he said, me either, I guess. I'm not really worthy to be a judge, am I? I said, I don't think any of us are. It was a fascinating conversation. Anyway.
Feels like he was confronted with something.
Huh?
Feels like he had a moment of confrontation with something in that moment.
Yeah. But we had to be intentional. Let's get out of the hotel and walk and see what we see. And what we saw was pretty cool.
And you had to be willing to engage, Jerry.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And
He did too.
Yes.
He said, this is the first day I've ever done this. And,
Wow.
and had a big sign for him, all that, but we didn't agree on everything, but it didn't matter. We talked for about 45 minutes. It was great. Then this other guy came up who was, he was Mennonite, and he engaged. And the three of us were going around in a circle. It was a pretty holy dance there.
That's interesting.
That's a great way to put it.
I talk to total strangers all the time, and I just run into the most wonderful little goodies. And one day this week, I'd gone over to the Repeat Boutique, and I was just wandering around in there, and these two ladies came in, and one had no balance, and one couldn't speak very well as they were looking. And I spoke to them, and they spoke to me, and the lady came and was trying to help them, and she just kind of didn't get them. Now, this sounds kind of crazy, I know, but so I found what the woman wanted, took it to her, and we began a conversation. And she had a traumatic brain injury, beautiful young girl. So she used to do the nursery at Bearden Baptist, and she loved those little children. She had these dimples, I don't know, she's probably in her 40s or 50s, and we didn't talk about how she got that. But we had this wonderful conversation, and I helped her, and then she thanked me, and she began to cry. And I cried with her anyway, which I cry really easy. And she said, I'm sorry, my brain injury, that's what's happened to me. And I said, I just do it all for no reason. No reason, an ad on TV. But when we got ready to leave, she came over and put her arms around me and hugged me and thanked me for, messing with her or whatever she said. And I thought, it was, you enriched my day with your strength and getting out there and doing, and we laughed a lot. And it was just this little moment that made my whole day. But I think those are, I don't do that everywhere, but I'm kind of bad about it. But, I mean, I did pick out a dress for somebody's mother's casket, but I'm being a little silly. But there are those moments of just an interaction where somebody gives you a real gift. Just their presence and their smile and their hope and moving on in life.
Yeah, and I think that's a really beautiful segue into that conversation about authority that comes in our paperwork this week. But just how we understand our own being to engage with others and to receive the engagement of others. And so it feels like your authority was at work in some way in helping her in that moment.
She helped me. Yeah.
We'll say more about that.
Well, I just think anybody that will spend time and have, some laughter and, maybe you're feeling you're not doing your best at times, and then somebody will show you it can be done. Look at me. Because she obviously had joy in her life and a friend that had come from Gatlinburg to pick her up, to take her to shop, and they were enjoying each other. We were silly and we laughed, and I reminded them of their mother, Anyway, just things that happen when you get kind of old.
Yeah, it feels like a really beautiful encounter.
Sounds like you always connect, on some level. You're just really good about reaching out and connecting, which is really
I'm just saying it's
awesome.
there, I think it's all around us all the
Yeah.
time.
That's true. But you.
And nature does that. The tree coming back every year and blooming, whatever it is.
I talk to a lot of strangers, and sometimes I discover they're me.
Right.
I'm talking to myself. Another thing you and I have in common.
Exactly.
Well, I am curious about this idea of authority and how we may each understand our own authority in these spaces with strangers or friends or family, or how is it that we understand those as spaces of authority or not?
Authority is a very tricky word.
Struggling with that too.
Yeah, and you come have dinner at the Ivy House, you'll have 5 people struggling for authority. And I'm the one that has to take the back seat, and I'm the mother. And, it's, I think it's a very abused word. Because, if we love one another, that shows a lot more than if we try to punch each other out. And it's just very tricky, because in the secular world, if people listen to you, then, you are respected. And there are many times that I've been dismissed as hurt my feelings. But it's not because my point was not valid. I was just overruled. And, you get over it. And then you can either be quiet, or you can say, is this worth getting my feelings hurt one more time? But I don't lead with my fist.
Yeah, and I really appreciate to me that feels like a dichotomy that emerges in how we might understand authority, that it is this power over model, or maybe another model that I hear you describing that might be something altogether different. Yeah, yeah.
When we're children, we are taught to respect authority by definition. I mean, listen to the preacher, listen to your school teacher, listen to your parent, listen to all the authority figures. As we grow older and develop intellectually, authority figures have to start earning our respect. And so you have people who have authority, and they have the authority to hurt you, they have authority to jail you, they have authority to do a lot of things, but outside of those kinds of authorities where they have actual power to do something, our view, if we continue to mature, our view tends to change about authority. You don't get to have authority just because you're a professor. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to make sense. So you earn authority outside of point, particularly informal authority. You have to earn as we roll.
I'm glad you raised it, because for me, and I'm really, we could talk for 3 days about it. For the last 25 years, I thought it was the most important word I could wrestle with, and wrestle with it professionally every day. I'm not being light, I mean that. I think we misunderstand massively the difference in power and authority, and we misuse the words. But I just give you just a note. I was sharing with Tom and Chris. Had the privilege and the fun to kind of have a stay vacation while I'm working. So I've dived into big ears and did the 12 or 13 things. And what I'm doing is I'm talking to folks. And particularly people who come here and ask them what they think about Cathedral and what was that venue like, and then getting conversations. But I'll tell you, the voice that I know we are in society now is the voice of Layla McCall, Oriana Gibbons, or these young artists, Haitian, African American, gay, whatever they are saying, I both have power and authority, and you're gonna listen to it. And our society is locked up like that, and the church has it as well. The church has been top down for its history so often, rather than bottom up. And people that's why they're attracted to Jesus. He didn't do it that way. And so I've always struggled with it. So I'm not trying to do a PhD on it. I struggle with it constantly. But I do think people misunderstand it. But it seems like the way they get their power is to understand they also have personal authority. I think that's what Jerry's saying. And maybe what, we always, and I hope they do. But so how do we honor that?
Yeah.
And how's it become honored?
Yeah.
And one of it is to honor people's journeys. That's all I'm saying. These young artists I'm listening to, because I don't know half of them and know them now, all kinds. I mean, brilliant young people, great, amazing kind of people here in town with us. I mean, really learned it. They know their craft. Boy, it's coming out in their lyrics. They're going, and it comes out in their story. I'm going to tell you my story, and there's authority in it.
Yeah.
And boy, it bends my ears back a little bit. I'm 69, and I'm listening.
Yeah, I really appreciate and resonate with that. One of the real formative moments in my life was I had an educator really go after me on what I thought authority was, and all I could come up with was power. And she insisted that it's a lot more than that. And I wrote them down because I thought I'd share them, but it's really been important for me. But her understanding of authority was all my strength, all my hope, and all my experience put together. That empowers me, guides me, and has taught me. But that in those experiences, in my hope and in my strength lies my authority. And that's been really formative for me to get outside of that idea of power that you raised, yeah.
I think it's a real talk within yourself to realize that when you're in place that you maybe could, but you don't really have a right, I don't know if that's the right words to use, to know when it's appropriate or you really have a little power or authority and when you don't, and you really need to stand back. I had a future son-in-law that was in a terrible wreck, and he's not my son-in-law, but I've loved him for 40 years, and he's my grandchildren's father. And so I thought I need to go and tell him that I really care about him, and that if there's something I can do, I'd be happy to. He could call on me anytime, and then I need to get out of it. And it was an interesting thing for me to watch because my grandchild was there who did have some authority because he was in charge of trying to find a car, trying to find his billfold, trying to do about his dog. Do you know what I mean? He had that. And being an old nurse, it was the first time, when people were asking things about this or that I thought, shut up, you don't. You're here to do one thing, and that's it. But I had that feeling of, it was kind of almost wonderful to have no power but to watch the people that did and what was happening there, if that makes any sense. But I think sometimes we have to stop you know, I'm always kind of touched by people that who I think have some authority or power, that give it away. Does that make sense? That give it to people that they think have more knowledge, hope, or whatever, or are better at something than they might be. I don't know if any of that makes any sense, but I was real aware of.
Yeah, the image of a scale almost comes to mind for me as you talk, is I may have less authority in this situation than I have more authority in this situation.
Right.
But I have authority nonetheless.
And be willing to give away, I mean, I watch people give away what they could just, even at times as a parent.
But I think authority doesn't have to be loud or forceful either.
Right.
It can just kind of be quietly given. Yeah, maybe that's what you were doing.
No, I mean, I just was observing, but,
In the scale, maybe that
yeah,
helps.
it's just interesting to watch in the world, I think.
Sally, don't you think, you know, I'm gonna go back what Lynn says. Sometimes authority is that person in the background where you're not doing all the stuff, but your presence is there. And as I watch Katie and Sudeep manage their chaotic life, and their young child and another one on the way. But I feel like my job is to be a presence. And with my experience, if they want it, they will ask for it. Believe me. But they probably don't want it. But just to be there in case something drops. And then I can gently pick it up. So I think that, I feel like that's kind of what you were saying and kind of what Lynn was trying to back up. It comes in all sorts of forms. And believe me, I'm tired. I don't want to direct all this stuff. But I don't mind supporting, and I love supporting. I've done it all my life. And now I support with a little less.
A little more quietly.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
When I hear you saying less is more.
Less is more. Yes, very nice. Thank you.
Well, in today's gospel, you've got two really different kinds of authority. And Chris, you were, in the image you gave us in the sermon about the formal authority came in on a horse on the other side of town. The informal authority came in on a donkey. And who had, there was one who had the authority of office. There was another who had authority granted to him by the people who chose to yell Hosanna and put the palm fronds down, all that. Now, that kind of authority can be fleeting, as we saw later in the week. But the two really, granted authority in many respects is a lot more powerful than authority by office.
Yeah, I was kind of playing in my mind with that idea of Jesus teaching as one who had authority, and how I might understand that different than as one who had power. But yeah, just what was it about Jesus's person that was authoritative?
We were doing 9 Counties, 1 Vision a long time ago, a community effort to try to think about our future. We intentionally did not invite anybody in elected office to be on the board. The term we used was we were looking for the mayors of Main Street, and not the mayors in City Hall. The people who had been granted authority by virtue of their experience, by virtue of their leadership, by virtue, but the fact that people listened to them, they were the ones that we invited to be in the leadership group that ran that initiative.
It's really lovely is what Sally and Ross was saying about, I think the older we get, we do try to, we have authority in terms of age and wisdom, and I'm learning that. And then just to sit back and be present, you know, you with your ex-son-in-law and you with your, your mom even, being there and your family and your daughter who's creating her own authority with her new family, but you're there, you're present. And I think that's like over half of it, is just to be present.
Present.
And just whatever they need, they know. But I think that's just, we learn that with age, you know, you just learn to be there and just be calm and be supportive. And so it's lovely hearing your stories that,
Thank you.
yeah, we
We
learn that
should-
slowly.
You know, we should teach it to the half of the Asian people who are not acting that way in our country.
Well,
I mean that.
you get
seriously.
any group though, you
It's
know, you.
grievous to me that people, see people my age act the way they act. Not kidding. Yeah, it's funny, we do see it when it works well. Tim and Frank are both military people, and the military does an expressively great job of understanding authority and power, don't they? And authority works really well, and you know what, it's a meritocracy. When it works, it's sublime. Doesn't work all the time. It keeps them doing grievous things. The military has, for the most part, done not grievous things in worse circumstances. And there's a reason, because authority works. You see, it's a real thing. I keep going back to, you guys, your definition of authority, what would you say power is then? Because I think everybody has power. They just sometimes don't know they have power. But the way they'll act up their power is to undermine the authority of others. I've done that grievously, and I'm sorry for it. I'm not even kidding. Those are bad marks on my character. But it's because I didn't have the authority, but I had a ton of power and I used it in a bad way. That can be happening all the time, but everybody has power. Everybody, I think. I think that's what Jesus was trying to say, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody's got spirit. Now, I'm just saying, I wonder what we think as Christians, what the difference is, because it matters. And then how do we, well, I'm addressing how we run the railroad. And just because you're in an office doesn't mean you have to act like you're in charge of it. And that's how we act out authority in our culture. I think church tries not to do that, but we still do that a lot. We still do a lot of top-down stuff. Don't miss it. And I just wonder about that, why we do it generation to generation, but don't call ourselves on it. And then say, what's that other voice out there? Because I hear it all the time, don't y'all? Coming from below me, from around me, from above me, wherever, saying, you're not listening to me. I hear it all the time. Been hearing it for 37 years here. And I try to listen. I'm not being wonderful. I really meant that. It's painful sometimes because I don't know what to do about it. I get it, but.
Yeah, well, and in that I hear that my power and my authority complement one another,
Yeah.
but I have to own it and respect your authority in relationship, and have room for both your power, my power, your authority, my authority.
Because when it works, it really works really well.
Yeah.
But there's still conflict and stuff, so it's not conflict free, or, you know, there's gonna be rubs. That's just part of life. That's, you know, we rub each other, and that's gonna happen. Sometimes that's how we get to the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes people they want to subvert that too. I try not to avoid I don't avoid conflicts, I don't make them, just don't avoid them. You're gonna have conflict, we're gonna have one. Because it's natural to disagree, kind of. Again, I'm too thoughtful about it because I think about it all the time. Because and my guess is there are a lot of people do. I'm around people who I think they do think about, I can make anything happen, and that I choose not to. I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty amazing. You know, I got more money than everybody, you know, probably the amount of money I've got is more than 90% of everybody pooled in this family, and they choose not to act that way. And I'm going like, holy smokes. I want to say something powerful about that. That looks like they don't know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing. They've been good guides to me. Like, wow. So what I'm not doing often is way more important than what I am doing.
Yeah, it's back to that idea of presence and how I'm using my authority in any given moment. Yeah.
And that they catch on, like you might have a lot of authority and power as a position when you're opening somebody's heart, but you may not have any at home, but yet you bring that into your home or wherever. I mean, there's something really wise about the person that does what you just said to me, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, I think if we appreciated more and saw where it was really good, like Jerry's the chair of the board at ESK, it is an expressed view at ESK that the parents are the authority. I'm not making that up. That's why ESK is a special place. So shout out to ESK. I think they're doing such a job for that reason, because they identified when the Volunteer Ministry Center started, that Sally had a lot to do. I did see, these are all things I had nothing to do with, by the way. I just observed it. They said, we don't own these people. they are worthy to be treated. We're not gonna use sociological language, we're gonna use neighbor. That's a little itchy, but it's as close as we can get. But they're more like friends, they're fellow travelers. And I thought, wow, what a way to start. So VMC started in this healthy authority place. We're gonna respect who they are. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I see it all around. Boy, when it's working, it's powerful.
And that, it really doesn't mean though that there's not gonna be disagreement. I mean, somebody has to make the ultimate decision. I've had people say to me many times in my career, "You're not listening to me." Yes, I am listening to you, and I do hear you. I just disagree with you, and I'm the one who has to make the decision. And so it's not, but you can do that in a respectful way, but it doesn't mean it's conflict-free. You have to make decisions around here every day.
At the Friendship House, which was for the mentally ill, and had a lot of people that were homeless, and it was a day shelter, they were on the board,
Yeah.
the power there.
Right.
And they decided if someone needed to not come for a day or two, because, their behavior was such. And it worked. Martha Ann Withers from this church had a lot to do with that. But that was really neat to watch them be, it was theirs.
I will jump in with another example. I work at the Vine Clinic, and it's run by nurse practitioners, and it truly is it's run by all of us. Nan Gaylord started it, but we all have a part. It is not top down. And it is the most refreshing. Now, we don't make any money. We're not gonna get rich.
What group is that?
It's a Vine Clinic. But it's run by a group of nurse practitioners. I have my own special part. Everybody has their own special part. And it is beautifully done. I hope it can last forever and ever I'm in, but it's a healthy place. And I've worked at some unhealthy places. But it is healthy. Doesn't make any money though. It's not capitalistic. Yeah.
Did you all, it sounds like you all came with your own power, authority, and you all work together, you connect, you respect each other. I mean, it sounds like in order for a lot of personalities like that.
It was Nan's idea, and she is not an autonomous person. She wants to share her leadership. And she's gifted. Yeah, she's gifted. So.
Yeah, so compassion and love are two words that come to mind as you were talking, Carney.
It's all about it.
Yeah.
And I fell into that like it was a happy accident, like most of my life. I had to have something happen abruptly that broke my heart, and then I found it.
So that's good. Have you help us a little bit? But so the writer goes to authority about this event today. And, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's such a heavy word, and I'll probably take you on to a deeper place. Because when I think about it, boy, it gets in my head real quick. It's more observable than it is livable. But boy, when I live it, like Carney's example, it's exquisite. But, so, what was Jesus' authority that day? Is that what he wants us to think about? I was really curious. I kept thinking, is that where it's pointed?
Yeah, I hear the question, what is Jesus' authority that moves people to welcome him in the way they welcome him? Yeah.
It's really funny. I was just looking at what the dictionary says about authority, and they confuse it just as much as everybody else. It says authority, noun, the power or right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. That's the first.
Terrifying
Us too. The
I
right,
like that job.
the right to act in a specified way, delegated from one person or organization to another. Military forces have the legal authority to arrest drug traffickers. Official permission, sanction. The money was spent without congressional authority. talk about number 2, a person or organization having power or control in a particular, typically political or administrative sphere. I mean, it's really confusing authority and power over and over
So
and
none of
over.
that fits Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
Yeah, I
really
was just
think
looking at this
so?
paragraph on
Yeah.
27, Jerry, where he said, where Patrick writes, so he's talking about Jesus' public and private life, and Jesus keeps his eye on those, using authority not as a means to its own end, but as a way of moving on toward what he sees and is his call, his voice, his vocation.
Mhm.
Authority is a tool, not a goal in this gospel.
Mhm.
Where were you reading that on 27?
It's this last paragraph before the response.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So he says, for Jesus, it's a pathway towards liberation, which feels deep. Yeah. So how might my own authority, our authority, move us toward liberation?
I keep thinking about like after a hurricane or a tornado, something horrible, how everybody in that community seems to pull up their own power. Nobody's necessarily leading it, you know, they bring out what food they have or their chainsaws, and they just work together, kind of like your clinic, but nobody's really in charge. Nobody tells everybody what they have to do, but they do it for one another, it feels like to me.
Well, we have to have somebody in charge,
I
but it ain't me.
I get that, but I mean, I think
Yeah,
that
somebody.
sometimes we choose with our power different things with, and maybe that gets into gifts and talents, but it's, I don't know, maybe I'm
Yes,
talking more
yeah.
about that, but still, it seems like it comes together to make something, the healing of everybody in one way or the other, or the feeding, or the, you know, the feeding of the 5,000. I mean, did everybody have a hamburger in their pocket and they shared it, or,
No, it just makes me think of the authority of Jesus. Makes me think of what John was talking about with the people from Big Ears, and that it, you know, the authority comes from his personal encounter, his personal experience. For me, it's his personal experience of what he ends up calling Father, and it comes from, he's not getting this out of a book. He's not getting this from somebody who's telling him something. He's encountering it. And that's where that for me is where the authority comes from. The same with John's talking about with these people, essentially saying, this is the story of my life. This is the story of how I'm experiencing living. And I'm asking you to listen to me, because my experience is you haven't. Or you've tried to tell me what my experience is supposed to be. And I think that's where the authority comes from, for me.
Yeah, and what clicks for me as you were talking, Tom, I worked with an organization in Nashville. At the times it was called Tokens. But one of the driving questions of that group was, why can singer-songwriters communicate something in 3 minutes that it takes academics 200 pages to communicate?
Yeah.
And it's this idea of heart and love and
Yeah.
experience, and
Because
vulnerability.
I think the authority, the authority question for me is simply, what's it like to be you? What's it like to be you? Well, how are you experiencing this life, and how's that similar to me, or how's that different from me?
And there's something that draws us to each other when
Yeah.
that's our beginning point.
When you're free to say that.
Yeah.
Well, young people say all the time, it's a word that's overused, and I didn't understand, but I know what they're saying. So I try to be not no curmudgeon, like Penny was addressing. I'm trying not to be that. But use the word agency. I think what they're saying, that my story has authority. My journey has authority. My experience has authority. And most of us, and I think in church, that's why it's personal for me to read Jesus, because believe me, the church told you when I was a kid what to believe. That ain't no joke. I was an Episcopalian, by the way. I knew what the boundaries were. By the way, we were the best Episcopalians. And we were also the best Christians. See, that went with it, you see what I'm saying? So it wasn't like, then I had to unlearn that. They didn't mean to teach that. That was what was in the line, probably, but we all got it. So I'm just saying, it's powerful to listen, though, that it's their narrative that has authority. That's what your Tom said.
I have 2 images. You talk about OGs a lot in here and elsewhere, as do I. But the black men that we interact with monthly, they've lived a life we haven't lived. And they have ultimate authority in that group, because when they tell us this is what it's like on the street, we have to listen. And, and it's not authority granted, it's authority that they have inherently by their experience. And the old Ringo Starr line, you know, if you want to sing the blues, you got to pay the dues, you know. And really, that's why songwriters can do it. So many of them have paid their dues, and they really are able to communicate that in a way. But you can always tell a fake, who's writing the words. But
Yeah, somebody else wrote the song.
Exactly.
Well, I am grateful for y'all's conversation this morning and all throughout Lent. I'm aware that we probably need to move toward heading upstairs, but I enjoyed and appreciated praying kind of collectively last week, so I might invite us over to page 28, and we can read this prayer together as a way of concluding our journey together this Lent. So if we're all there, we can pray together. Jesus, person of privacy and publicity, popular for a while, but not populous. You held your center based on what you understood your call. Help us to hear a call, not to greatness or grandiosity, not to position or prominence, but to the deepest call of all, love, creativity, and justice. May this carry us through the laws and limitations of our lives, and may we be faithful to love, creativity, and justice as you were. Amen. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Jesse, thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. That's a beautiful prayer.